I'm here with Ron Miller from Tawnytown, Maryland. It's March 28th, 2011, and I'm here interviewing him at McDaniel College. How you doing, Ron?
Good, Robbie.
So, Ron, could you tell us where you were born?
Yeah, I was born in Wiesbaden, Germany. It's close to the center of the country near Frankfurt, and I was born at the Army Air Force Base there.
And what are some of your fondest memories of Germany when you were a child there?
Well, as a child, what I remember most is the candy stores and the foods and things of that nature. So I really enjoyed the foods from Germany, as I still do to this day. So that is some of my fondest memories there in Germany.
And your dad was an American. And what obstacles were there with your dad marrying a German lady 7 years after World War II had occurred?
Well, being a child, I really, very, very young there at the time, I never realized that there was much of a problem there, but, obviously my mother and father have told me different things. But yeah, there was my mom's parents, both of them, the grandfather and the father, both served in the German army. One being World War I and one being World War II. So they weren't real fond of the Americans, and understandably so. So yeah, they did not like the idea of her marrying an American. And then on my dad's side, being from Texas, his family did not like the idea of him marrying a German. We'd just been to war with them for 4 years and lost so many men over there fighting these people, and now he's marrying a German. So yeah, there was some heartache. So my mom's side of the family didn't care for my dad, and my dad's side of the family didn't care for her. But I don't ever feel like I was mistreated by either side of the family. It was just they didn't care for each other's spouses.
And I was told that you used to run errands for your family, and one of those errands was picking up items at a local store. Can you tell us a little bit about that?
Yeah, my dad used to send me to the store to buy beer and whatever else, but he just happened to mention beer. And the only reason he did that was the fact that I could speak German real well, and he couldn't. I was partially raised by a German lady, and I'm not exactly sure. I can see her in my memory and spending a lot of time with us, kind of like a nanny, but she was German, so I first learned how to speak German, so that's why I got to run the errands to the store, because I could speak the language and my dad couldn't.
Did you learn German from your mother and this lady that kept you?
Correct. I learned that that's all they spoke in the home was German, and my dad being at work and my mom and this lady being there, she was like a grandmother to me. So I don't know if she was there assisting my mom and helping her out with me, but yeah, that's I learned to speak German before I did English.
Also, I was told to ask you about a little girl with red boots. What's the story about her?
Well, excuse me. Where we lived on the military installation in Baumholder, there was a fence around the entire installation. Well, in the corner of the fence that was closest to the town where I used to run errands for my parents, there was a hole in the fence. So, us boys, we used to go to town going through that hole in the fence. And my first encounter with this girl was walking to run an errand, and I saw her across the street with these red rubber boots on. Looked like she just came from the cow pen or something. And next thing I know, she's running across the street yelling at me and kicking me, and I just hightailed it out of there. So from that point on, I was always wary of the little girl with the red boots, and that was one thing I always spied out, was to see if she was around, and if she was, I wouldn't go to town. I'd find another way to get to the store, but I wouldn't go through there.
What did your parents do for a living?
Well, my mom she was a homemaker, so she really didn't work outside the home. And my dad was in the military and in the Army, and he did communications training. So he was involved in either training soldiers to be communications experts or doing the job himself.
And what are some of the things that you liked to do as a kid in Germany? Did you go to movies there, or?
Well, we never really went to movies. I mean, they had movies, but I can remember we had some really good friends that lived close to us that were Germans. He was a painter and she was a homemaker, and we used to go to their house, and he built a train set in his basement, and he painted all the scenery. He was very, very good, and so we used to go down there and play with his trains all the time. And then nearby where they lived, there was an old ruined castle that we used to go visit and play in all the time, which, you know, as a kid, you can't have much more fun than visiting castles and thinking about what went on in those times. So, you know, and hiking through the forests and the fields, and it's just a very picturesque country, and there's a lot for kids to do if you're outdoorsy and want to do those type of things.
When did you move to the United States?
Well, the first time I believe was in 1955 or 56. Then we were in the States for a few years, and then went back to Germany, and then stayed there for probably 3 years, because the rotation was such that you'd spend 3 years in Germany and probably 2 years in the States. And then I think the last time we came back was in 1963, where we actually stayed. So I'd say what I actually remember the most is in 1963.
So you obviously moved around a lot in the U.S. as well. Can you tell us about some of the different places you lived while you were as a kid here in the United States?
Yeah, I lived in Georgia, in Fort Benning, Georgia. Not exactly sure where that's close to, but it's in the southern part of the state, and I lived there, and I can remember going to school there, and then also we lived in Fort Leonard Wood, Missouri, which was where I stayed for approximately 5 years, which that was the longest period we'd stayed in any place that I can remember as a child growing up. And we spent some time in Texas. So when my dad went to Vietnam, then he sent us to Texas, and we lived there while he was in Vietnam, and then we went back and went to Missouri again. So that's just some of the places: Missouri and Georgia, Texas.
And while you were in school, did you go to school on base, or did you go to school in the community?
Well, when we were in, when my dad was in the Army, we went to school on base. All the kids went to school on base from first or kindergarten through the 9th grade, because we had what we called junior high at that time, and that was 7th, 8th, and 9th. And then when we finally went to our first civilian school was when we entered high school. So all the other times I was in a military base at a school on the base.
And how were race relations back then when you were going to school and lived on base? Were your schools integrated?
Yeah, there was no problem with race relations on installations where we went to school, because there was no race dividing in the communities. All the kids, we lived next to each other. You didn't get placed in a community or in a home because that's where all the whites went or that's where all the blacks went. You just got a home based on when one came open. So blacks, Hispanics, whites, they all lived in the same neighborhoods. The only difference you had was between officers and enlisted. Now they lived on a separate side of the base than what we did. So if you want to have any problems there, it was between officer kids and enlisted kids. But that wasn't too big of a deal either. But no, we had no racial problems or tensions that I was aware of as a child. I had as many friends that were black or Hispanic as I did white, because we all lived together in the same neighborhoods.
I heard you played baseball for your high school team. Where was that? Can you tell us a little bit about that?
Yeah, that was when my dad was he was in Vietnam at the time, and that was my first high school that I attended after being away from a military installation, that being in Texas. And I was always a pretty good baseball player, so I tried out for the team and I made it. And I played outfield, I played left field. Never was much of a hitter, but I could always feel the fly balls. And I pitched a little bit for the high school when they just needed somebody to come in and throw a strike. Then that's what I do for them. So, wasn't a great career, but I enjoyed baseball.
Did you play any other sports?
Played 1 year of football, but wasn't too impressed with football. I used to play neighborhood football all the time with the kids, but and enjoyed that. But being in the high school setting, it was to me too much work and not enough time to play games. With practice all week and one game a week, baseball was a lot better. We practice a few days and have a lot of games during the week, so that was more appealing to me.
Was it always your ambition to join the Army?
No, I had no ambition to join the Army whatsoever. That was nothing that was ever told to us at home or anything like you're going to go into the Army because I was in the Army. So no, it was never pushed that we went into the Army. And being around the Army bases all the time, we never really thought about it that much. We were there, so.
But you ended up joining the Army. But what did you do before you joined the Army and after high school?
Well, after I graduated from high school, I worked at a local industry. It was called Timex, and worked at the automated section there, making parts for the watches that the ladies were assembling on the production line. So that was my first job, and really my only job after high school that I worked prior to going into the Army. But I moved into a position with Timex that I couldn't move any higher without first either getting additional education or going off and getting some type of technical training, which at the time I wasn't interested in doing either. So I decided that I would go check out the Army and see what they had to offer as far as training, opportunities for advancement, because that started to become a little more important to me than the actual job was. What's my opportunity for moving up?
And how old were you when you first entered the Army?
I was 22.
What was your training?
I went in as an electronics technician, worked on the old Nike Hercules missile system, and then again, I had no idea that I was able to learn that type of training, but through the examinations that you take for entering the Army, they said I had an aptitude for it, so I was able to achieve that and complete that training.
Tell us a little bit how you first met your wife, Sandy.
While working at Timex Corporation, a buddy of mine was involved in a motorcycle accident, and there was a need for blood donations. So I went to the hospital to donate blood, and that's where I met Sandy. I initially did not meet her. I met her friends, and next thing I know, they're bringing Sandy out, and we're all just having a little conversation about everything and anything, but I'm very nervous because I'd never given blood before, and they seemed to calm me down, and so but anyway, we met that evening at my work. She brought me a sandwich because we talked about that, and so she brought a sandwich, and then after that we started dating after that.
Can you tell us a little bit about your wedding?
Maybe I should say weddings. Yeah, initially her father, being a very religious man, and me not really confessing religion one way or the other, he wasn't too excited about me dating his daughter. So we dated, and then I asked her to marry me, and she said yes, and I said, well, let's run off and get married. So we did that. we didn't tell either one of our parents that we were married, and we just continued life as was. And she lived at her place, and I lived at mine, and then we decided that that was not going to work. So we told each set of parents what we'd done, and then her parents had set up a formal wedding and everything, and so I have a wedding anniversary of the 1st and the 31st of March. So I get 2 dates.
So where did you live while you were in the Army?
I lived in Huntsville, Alabama. I lived again in Baumholder, Germany, and it's funny. My first duty assignment was in the same place that my father was stationed when he was in the Army, was Baumholder. So I was quite familiar with the surroundings in the community, and where we actually worked there was where I used to go to elementary school. They changed it from a school to a barracks and working area, so it was kind of odd. But yeah, I lived there in Germany, and then came back to Huntsville, Alabama after my Germany stint, and then from Germany I got out of the Army, went back to Texas and lived for about 3 years, and then went back into the Army, and in '84 I was stationed in Colorado, and then from Colorado I went to Vermont, and then from Vermont to New York, from New York to Maryland, from Maryland to Kentucky. So Kentucky was my last duty assignment.
How many kids do you and Sandy have?
We have 3, 2 girls and a boy.
And I understand your eldest daughter, Dawn, was born in Germany while you were stationed there. Was that special for you?
Oh yeah, it's always special. Seeing as I was the firstborn in our family, and I was born in Germany, you know, she was born there also. A little bit different being born there and then having to take your wife to a military hospital in the middle of the night when it's freezing cold and snow on the road, and you've got a $200 car that's got holes in the floorboard and doesn't want to start sometimes. So, you know, it was quite an ordeal to have a child born there for a lower enlisted person at the time, because we didn't make much money. But it's still, to me, rewarding, and she was able to meet some of her German relatives, or even though she doesn't remember them, they remember her, and I think that left an impression with them, and they felt her to be a part of their family as she was a part of our family. So she was well received by my German relatives.
What about your other kids? Where were they born?
My next daughter was born in Huntsville, Alabama, and then my son was born in Denver, Colorado.
When did you move to Carroll County? And prior to moving there, did you have any ties to this community?
Well, in 1995, I had been working in New York, so then they assigned me to Maryland. No, you don't necessarily have any ties to, and I have no ties to Maryland whatsoever. I have no relatives here, nothing, so it was completely a new thing to be stationed in Maryland. In fact, I had to really look on the map to see exactly where Maryland was, but I knew it was a small state, so. But yeah, and there was no ties or anything. It's just where the Army decided I needed to be.
Where did your 2 youngest children go to high school?
My 2 youngest went to Francis Scott Key High School, and they attended there all 4 years, which was, to me, very fortunate, and that's what I wanted, because that was something as a child in the military that I did not have, was the opportunity to go to a high school all 4 years, because we moved so regularly that it just wasn't going to happen. So that was kind of a goal and ambition as a parent for me, that they were able to attend that high school in all 4 years.
Was that in Union Bridge?
Yes, Union Bridge.
Do you have any interesting stories while you worked for the Army as an ROTC instructor in Baltimore?
Well, interesting, sad. I mean, there's just a lot of emotions that are involved in that time period that I spent as an ROTC instructor at Forest Park High School in Baltimore. It I've went into the idea of it being a very rewarding type position where I could help kids, but I never realized how much suffering and problems there were in the inner cities, and how many children were without fathers or parents, or lived with grandma, grandpa, or lived in group homes. It just was an enormous problem. So it was kind of overwhelming for me. And then, you know, we tried to do things for the kids. We had a fundraiser, and I had my van parked out and to unload my material for the fundraiser. And then when I go at the end of the day to load it up, it was stolen. And, you know, it was just, to me, it was just very sad.
So did you ever get your van back?
Yeah, I got the van back, but it was completely totaled and not serviceable, so never drove it again.
Mm. Have you been involved in the Carroll County community here, maybe through sports or other activities?
Yeah, I was involved, not so much with my youngest daughter in her 4 years at the high school, because being fairly new in the job I had, I was not around that much. But my youngest, my son, yeah, I was involved a lot there, because through the intramural programs in the middle schools and the elementary schools, I coached, assistant coached, so did a lot of things with that. Also, when he was involved, moved up to high school, I was involved with the athletic boosters. I was the treasurer for the athletic boosters. So, you know, we planned things, did things, fundraisers, things of that nature. So, yeah, I was involved a lot at the high school level with my son.
And I'm going to give you a last question here. What legacy would you like to leave for your great-grandchildren?
Well, I have some grandchildren right now, and I just want to leave them the legacy that, you know, that sometimes life throws you a lemon, or you have to change things or do things a little bit different, but you have to take the positive out of life and move on. A lot of people look at the military and that lifestyle as a negative, having to uproot and move so many times. But I looked at it as a positive, because I met a lot of people, I lived in a lot of different communities, I was exposed to a lot of different things, and that's what I want my grandchildren to look at, you know, or great-grandchildren, you know, get exposed, be involved, do things that are going to be positive for wherever you're at, and just get into the community and get to know the people.
Ron, thank you. This is Rob Miller and Ron Miller signing off.